You know, creating your own reverb is actually quite easy. Let me show you. 1. Find an interesting space. 2. Record a short sound. Not that one. Let's try one more time. Good.
A few moments later.
3. Import your WAV file into your favorite convolution reverb. You can also work a little bit on the tail, maybe clean up the file if necessary. So you can either just drag it into your reverb or you can import it. Now let's see what the piano sounds like without the reverb on. Let's turn on the reverb. Hi there, this is Sound with Second Tier Sound. Really nice to see you here. So what you just saw was me recording what's called an impulse response, recording off the room, and then I placed that sound in my convolution reverb to get that sound. It's quite easy to do and you don't need the best equipment, but of course, if you want super quality, then better mics, less noise, a better room, stereo mics. So if you don't want to spend time and money doing this yourself, which is quite fun, you can actually pay Spitfire to do it for you. And they have created now their Air Studios Reverb, which is basically a bunch of impulse responses from their amazing Air Studios, the studio they use for recording all their other sample libraries. I wanted to show you how it works by checking out some of my singing. But I thought, can this reverb make my singing sound a little bit better? Let's check it out.
Så skimrande var aldrig havet.
As you can hear, bone dry, and also all the voices are in the center. Nothing is panned. I wanted to see if this reverb can actually create some space just by slapping it on. So let's try that again.
Så skimrande var aldrig havet och stranden aldrig så befriande.
And the reason it can do this is because it actually has several mics. And this is the first time I see any reverb is doing this. Maybe there are some out there that I don't know of, but I haven't seen this before. And that basically means that all these different mics can pick up the voices and so create a wider space. Now, another way is to actually have different reverbs for each of the different voices. So I'm going to show you here what I mean. What I've done is I've placed a mono signal up here, a little bit on the right side, a little bit further away from the tree mic. That's the only one I've loaded. And basically, with each voice, I place them differently in this space so I can create a wider field like they're actually singing from different places.
Så skimrande var aldrig havet och stranden aldrig så befriande. Fälten, ängarna och träden aldrig så vackra och blommorna aldrig så ljuvligt doftande.
I don't know if it maybe sound any better. You would be the judge of that. But at least sounded like I'm in a room instead of being dead center and bone dry and much more wider and warm. But let's go a little bit more into detail so you understand everything you can do with this reverb. Let's start by hearing the piano dry without any reverb on. Let's drag in the Air Studios Reverb, this enormous interface that can actually be changed. So here's the reverb, the default preset, without anything done to it. And the reason it sounds so great, it's because of this amazing space, obviously, but it's also all the different mics that you get. So you can see here, there are different mics placed here. You can click on it and you can see what the mics are in this space. And you can turn on more of these if you want to. You have a head mic here. And you can turn them off, obviously, and then change the levels to get the sound you're after. And in a way, that's pretty much it. What makes this reverb so unique, that it's not just one source that is recording this beautiful space. It's several sources bouncing around of sounds in this room, making it really wide. But there are a few more controls. We have two different layouts. So we have a layout B as well, where everything is placed differently and the source is in a different place as well. You can see here, every time I click on something, it takes a while to calculate all these impulse responses and reverb time. Then you can actually change the ceiling, or the canopy as it's called, not the actual ceiling. It's a platform that's moving up and down. And obviously, if it's lower, you have a smaller room and you get less reverb time. And then you can change the material of that canopy. Wood, which is a softer sound, and Mellotech, which makes the reverb go on a little bit longer, bouncing more. And then you can also have different dampeners in the room. You can see a few of them here. And if I have these dampeners here, they show up here. And it just makes the reverb behave differently. So in this case, it's actually a softer sound. But there are a bunch of interesting presets here, organized by instruments or the actual hall. And I really recommend you try them out. Now, down here, we have where the source of the sound is coming. You can actually see that here. Now, this is a stereo source, so it has two mics. But I can move this around if I want to. And then basically you could say instrument, in this case, piano, is coming from here. I'm moving the instrument around, you could say. And I can also make it into a mono mic. As you see, it's only one now. Or I can change the field of the width here. So the source is moving closer. But not only that, I can go to the source itself. And then I can move the direction of the sound. The point is where the sound goes to. So I can say that the sound is going to play that way or the other way. And that really affects the sound in the room as well. And then I can also EQ that sound if I want to, which is interesting. Maybe you have an instrument that doesn't really mesh with the space in some way, lower or emphasize certain frequencies. Otherwise, the way it's set by default is really good. And then just basic controls of the tail. You can have a pre-delay, which is when the reverb kicks in. So it has a delay before it kicks in. So here we can do it again actually by 0. Kicks in immediately. And now if I have an enormous delay here, you will hear that it comes later. Now, if you play with this a little bit, you can actually make the sound bigger. And then, quite fun, you can play with the tail. Now, this is pretty much 100%, and that's the real tail. Why not maximize it up to 200? And it sounds unnatural in a way that this room must be gigantic, but it also sounds so good because there's no artifacts here. One thing that a lot of people don't think about is that you can sort of use the tail as a mix knob, sort of. If you go down, for example, let's go down here, you might find that the original sound is too wet. So let's lower the tail. Let's go down even further. The great thing about that is that the tail is short, so it doesn't interfere with the original source, but the sound contains all of the reverb data. The whole room is still in the sound. And that's not the same as mixing it, because if I have, for example, around 90, and I lower the mix knob because I find it's too wet, then I'm actually reducing the entire volume of the reverb. So then the piano sound in this case doesn't have the full reverb data in its sound. It doesn't mean that it's bad, it's just a different way of thinking about it. So piano is clearer, the tail is still as long as it is, but it's lower and subdued. Now, I thought, let's look at a very different instrument and see how we can play with it. I have a trumpet here that is completely bone dry. There's no room sound to this instrument whatsoever. And it sounds very unnatural because there is no space like that, really. So let's turn on the reverb. But in this case, I'm not going to use the send. I'm going to use the insert instead. When I send a sound, then I actually send some part of the main sound. I send it somewhere else to a different channel where the reverb is placed. That's normally how you do it. But in this case, I don't want that. I actually want the reverb to completely shape the sound. I don't want any other original source to go through. Let's open up and let's see what it sounds like here. I just wanted to say I've used the trumpet solo preset. You can see it's a mono source and it's placed in a different place, more like how it would be placed in an orchestra perhaps. Let's see what that sounds like. So obviously quite wet. Let's go down just a smidge. More to my liking. The great thing about this is that even though this is a completely bone dry instrument, it sounds like it's in a room. I can actually move this around if I wanted to. Maybe I want it to be on the left side, and maybe I want it to be down further here. Now, I do want to say this is not a pan, so it's not going to sound like it's completely on the left side. What I'm doing here is that I'm changing the impulse response, how long it's going to take for this source to reach this mic, and how long it's going to take for all the bouncing around to reach the other mics. And it becomes even more clear if you have several instruments, and then you can move them around. So let's try this sound over here now. Let's place it over here. Now, you're not going to hear the differences unless you have good speakers or headphones. But that makes the instrument more present or more far away and a little bit to the left and the right. Now, something I want to say about this. This is a trick I use quite a bit in order to enhance these bone dry instruments that I use. And I don't want to use this for everything in my orchestra because then my computer's going to say, please stop. It's a lot of processing power that it can't handle. So I use it occasionally on certain instruments that need this treatment. But otherwise, a send is really what you want because then you save on resources. But don't be afraid to try the insert as well. So I wanted to show you a little bonus trick you can do with a convolution reverb. This is my gift to you for staying so long with me checking out my video. Anyway, check it out. So basically, you want to put the reverb as an insert. You can do it as a send, but I don't think it works as well because you want this sound to be changed completely. And I'm just using a piano, but it can be any sound, obviously. And then I import any sound I can think of. In this case, I'm going to load up a sea wash, basically waves. And now I'm just going to play anything on the piano and see what it sounds like. So, hope you like that trick. Now, back to the Air Studios Reverb. What do I think about it? Well, I think it's absolutely amazing. It's the better reverb I've heard in a long time. Now, I haven't tried all the reverbs out there. I'm not a reverb specialist. But what it does to me, the warmth, the space, the width, the realness that it creates, I'm blown away. I very much love the idea that I can move the source around. I can have different mics and decide more what I want. I can change the room. It's quite something. I haven't seen that before, so that's unique to me. If you know other reverbs that can do this, then please let me know in the comments so I can learn something too. Anyway, I also want to say it's not a cheap reverb. It's not the most expensive out there. It's priced fairly, I think, for what it can do, and I'm sure a lot of work to make this happening. But if you're beginner to this and you already have convolution reverbs, then don't just run out and buy this. We're talking about that little extra % of quality that might make your orchestration sound just a little bit more cohesive. It could be good, for example, if you have other instruments that you feel like they don't fit in with your Spitfire instruments, this can help you bring that in. Maybe you're that advanced sound designer that needs to place the source exactly at that spot, have that impulse response with that microphone and that dampening, that could be for you. So I think this is a reverb for specialists and pros who really know what they want to go to the next level. Otherwise, it's all about mastering the plugins and the reverb you really have and know exactly what you're doing to create the sound you're after. But it's still a great to recommend. This is the best reverb I have heard so far. But please let me know if there are other reverbs I should check out as well. So thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this reverb and this review, I mean. Hope you enjoyed this review. So I will see you soon again, and I hope you create a lot of music. So take care.